You ever hear those stories about places that just feel well off, like they're not quite on the map, maybe playing by different rules?
Yeah, those places that seem to collect
Yeah,
unsettling tales, places with a certain reputation.
exactly. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating source material. It's an account detailing a whole series of strange disappearances, eerie stuff, all focused on this one place, Croft Hollow, West Virginia. Now, many of you probably know the basics of the Chalkman story, but our goal here isn't just retelling it. We want to really unpack the facts as they're laid out in the source.
Right.
Look for the patterns, the recurring ideas, and try to understand how this account creates such a powerful sense of dread.
Precisely. You're treating this almost like data analysis,
Yeah.
Not just a spooky story, but a narrative construction. What are the specific details the source uses? How does it build that atmosphere?
Mm-hmm.
And what can we maybe learn about fear itself, about symbols, from looking closely at how this whole thing is put together? There's quite a bit to unpack.
Okay, so let's break it down. The source drops us right into Croft Hollow, West Virginia, paints it as this super quiet, really isolated town, nestled against those Appalachian ridges.
Deep isolation.
Yeah, and the details really hammer that home. No stoplights, zero cell service, and this is key for the story, no missing persons unit.
That last was crucial. It sets up a kind of vulnerability from the start.
Totally. And the source says this isolation was really put to the test back in October 2017. A 10-year-old boy went into the woods and just didn't come back. That boy's name was Connor Baird. The source paints him as a quiet kid, blonde hair, really into sketching, like really into it. But his drawings, they weren't, landscapes or superheroes. It was always the same figure.
Yeah.
Tall, thin, white head, no face, arms way too long.
Unsettling proportions.
Right, and circles drawn around it like a target. He actually called it the Chalkman.
Oh.
And the source makes a point of showing how these drawings sort of escalated. His mom, Lydia, didn't think much of it at first, but then the Chalkman started appearing everywhere.
It wasn't just contained anymore.
No, it went from his notebooks, then to the walls of their house, then onto his bed sheets, and the creepiest part, on the bathroom mirror, drawn in the steam after his showers.
Wow. Okay, so that progression, the source details, that's really interesting from a narrative standpoint. It's not just color, it's showing the influence growing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Moving from his private space, the notebook, out into the shared space. The walls, the mirror, it's like the source is visually showing this thing encroaching, becoming inescapable, a loss of control.
Perfectly put. And then October 12th, 2017, the source says Connor just vanished, playing outside 1 minute, gone the next.
Just like that.
Police search, dogs brought in. They tracked his scent straight into the Croft Hollow forest, a place locals apparently always considered bad luck.
Always a bad sign in these stories.
Tell me about it. But the search turned up almost nothing. No footprints, no torn clothing, nothing. Just one thing, a piece of paper, nailed to a tree. Yeah, it was one of Connor's drawings. But this one, it was a stick figure hanging by the neck.
Oh, God.
And written underneath in what looked like a kid's handwriting. He needs new eyes.
Okay. Wow,
Yeah.
He needs new eyes. That phrase right there.
Yeah.
The source putting that in immediately changes everything, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, it shifts it from just a disappearance, maybe an accident or abduction, to something active, predatory almost. It implies intent, a specific, bizarre need.
A need for eyes.
Yeah, like perception or watching or maybe even replacing something fundamental. It establishes this really chilling core demand of whatever this Chalkman is right from the moment he's gone. It's incredibly effective, narratively speaking.
And the source makes it really clear this wasn't some random one-off tragedy. Connor going missing actually made people in the town start talking about older stuff, similar stuff.
Right, and that's key. The source uses these historical connections to build the Chalkman into something bigger than just Connor's story. It's not just recent. It's this enduring, almost like elemental presence in the hollow.
Makes it feel inevitable almost.
Exactly. It weaves this pattern through time, which makes the current events feel even more terrifying.
Yeah, the source mentions two specific older cases. Back in 1979, two sisters disappeared on Halloween night, last seen heading towards Croft Hollow, and they had chalk in their pockets.
Chalk again?
Then, 1995, a guy named Rick Horner went camping up there, never seen again.
And he left something behind too, right? The source mentions a camera.
Yeah, a camera. And only one photo survived development. It showed Rick, in the woods smiling or whatever, but behind him, faint. You could just barely make out this tall white figure between the trees.
The same figure Connor drew.
Looks like it. And get this, in the dirt, right next to where they found the camera. A circle, drawn in chalk.
Okay, so let's pause here for our deep dive. What patterns are really jumping out, specifically with the chalk and the figure? The source keeps bringing these back.
Well, the chalk feels like its calling card, right?
It does. It's more than just what it's drawn with. It becomes this recurring symbol, a signature of its presence. Mundane item, but used in this really eerie context.
Yeah.
And the figure itself, tall, white, no face, those long arms, it hits that uncanny valley nerve, doesn't it? Almost human, but wrong.
Definitely wrong.
So the source uses these repeated elements, the chalk, the specific description of the figure, to create this ritualistic feeling. It suggests something methodical, something intentional behind it all. That's how the legend, the lore, gets built in the narrative.
And the source adds another layer of just pure weirdness. A week after Connor disappeared, his mom Lydia gets a voicemail. Middle of the night, 3:12 a.m.
Oh no!
Yeah. It starts with static, then she hears faint breathing, and then a whisper. And the source says it was unmistakably Connor's voice.
What did it say?
It said, "Mommy, I'm cold. He made me look at it. I can't close my eyes anymore."
Chilling. Absolutely chilling. He made me look at it.
I know. And the police, they traced the call. It pinged from inside the Croft Hollow forest. But, and this is where it gets really strange, the location it pinged from doesn't exist on any map.
Okay, that detail, the unmappable location, that's a classic move in this kind of folklore, right?
Seems like it. What does it signify, do you think, in terms of the narrative?
Well, it immediately takes the story out of the purely physical world. It suggests the forest, or maybe the Chalkman's domain, isn't bound by our normal rules of space and geography. It's liminal.
Like between worlds?
Something like that. It implies the threat isn't just in the forest, but maybe the forest itself is wrong or it leads somewhere else. It makes the Chalkman feel even more elusive and, frankly, supernatural. Much harder to fight something you can't even locate on a map.
So what about Croft Hollow now? According to the source material, the whole area is officially blocked off, fenced up, signs saying it's a protected landslide zone.
The official explanation. Plausible deniability.
Right. But hikers who ignore the signs, they apparently still report finding stuff, chalk drawings on the trees. Yeah. Same stuff. Circles, eyes, stick figures.
So whatever is there isn't gone, or isn't deterred by a fence.
That doesn't seem like it. And the whispers, the local stories, they're still going too. Some people say they've actually seen a tall, pale figure just standing there, motionless, watching them from between the trees. Others say it whispers, tells you things, tells you to draw, tells you to look. And the part that really gets under your skin, according to the source, it tells you that once you see it, you belong to it.
I noticed a shift there in the narrative. It's moved beyond just disappearances. Now, the source describes active interaction, commands even. Draw me, look, you belong to it. That suggests something more insidious than just being taken.
Like what?
Like psychological influence, maybe even possession or some kind of assimilation. The threat evolves from physical danger to maybe spiritual or mental enslavement. The source is really upping the stakes here. It's not just about what it does, but what it wants you to become.
Which brings us to the postscript. The final, really unsettling piece of the puzzle from the source. Connor Baird's body. Never found.
No closure.
None. But 3 years later, this was in 2020, a hunter is up in those woods, finds a kid's jacket, looks like Connor's.
Okay.
And inside the pocket, a folded note. Just a few words, it read, "It needs new eyes again."
Wow. Right back to the beginning. That note is incredibly effective storytelling by the source.
Why do you say that?
Well, first, like you said, no closure about Connor. Ambiguity is often way scarier than a definite, horrible end. Second, repeating "it needs new eyes again" reinforces that cycle. It connects directly back to the drawing found when he first vanished. It implies this isn't over. The Chalkman's need, whatever it is recurrent, like a hunger that comes back. It leaves the whole narrative open-ended, lets the dread just hang there.
So, okay. We've really walked through the key pieces the source gives us. The chalk drawings, that pale figure, the disappearances over time, the messages about eyes, about belonging.
Yeah.
You can really see how the account meticulously builds this unsettling atmosphere.
Absolutely. And what's so compelling, looking at it this way, is how those core elements, the chalk, the eyes, the figure, keep repeating. They become these powerful symbols within the narrative.
Right.
It's not random. It's a carefully constructed story about, well, maybe influence, maybe possession, maybe something else entirely. But the consistency is what gives that chilling power. It shows how effective recurring motifs can be in establishing deep-seated horror.
Yeah, this deep dive, just focusing on the details provided in the source, it really makes you think about how these narratives work, doesn't it? How just a few specific, repeating details, a child's drawing, a weird message, chalk marks can echo and build until the whole thing feels incredibly layered and genuinely disturbing.
Mhm.
It kind of challenges you, the listener, to look closely at the facts presented in any story like this and maybe think about how they're put together, what effect they're designed to have. So we'll leave you with this thought pulled straight from the source materials warning. If you ever find yourself near an old, quiet forest and you happen to notice chalk marks on the trees, maybe just turn around. Don't go looking for who drew them. Because, as the story goes, sometimes what's watching you wants you to draw it next. What do you think it really means in a story like this to finally belong to it?
Please subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to create even more great content for you. Thank you so much.